What is up, everybody? Welcome to the official Chase's Sports News March Madness Bracket Prediction Show. I am Chase Coburn, and today I'm going to be going through every single one of the 63 games we will have in March Madness. I'm going to be picking my bracket. I have in depth notes for y'all. We're going to be breaking everything down in regards to March Madness, and you guys are going to see my crowned NCAA tournament champion. Now, last year I was happy with what I did. I kind of had a 50-50 choice last year. I was either going to go Gonzaga or I was going to go the UConn Huskies to win it all. So I had one bracket with UConn, one bracket with Gonzaga. Both teams ended up making the Elite Eight. UConn won it all. However, three of the other Final Four teams I had getting eliminated in the first round. So you never know what's going to happen with March Madness. It's such a chaotic and crazy time. So we are here today. You guys can see it now up on the screen. We're going to be making our official March Madness predictions. Stetson, congratulations on a great season. And to be honest, again, Stetson, again, decent season from them. Jalen Blackman is a top 10 scorer in the country. It's UConn. We're going to get into it later. I'm a Husky fan. I'm rocking the Ray Allen jersey today. This is a juggernaut. Again, we're going to get into it later. This matchup right here between FAU and Northwestern is one of the more interesting ones in college basketball. It's so hard. I don't know what I want to do. I think I'm going to go FAU. And the reason why I'm going to go FAU is it all depends on if they're making their shots or not, right? They have the 21st ranked offense in the country this year. They've been here before. If they make their shots, which I do think they will, against a very, I don't know, let's just say iffy Northwestern team who I really feel does not have a calling card, if they make their shots, they're going to be really, really, really hard to beat. So I'm going to go FAU. San Diego State, UAB. San Diego State, congratulations. I think you guys are moving on. UAB, congrats on a good year, but this is not a great team. I'm going San Diego State, and I'm not thinking twice about it. I'm also going to go Auburn over Connecticut's finest Yale. Yale got here on a buzzer beater. There's a good chance it wouldn't even be here. Well, I think Auburn is a sneaky team to win a national championship. They're amazing on both sides of the ball, so I really, really like Auburn. I think they move on. So all the favorites move on so far. I do think this is where we have a change, though. BYU and Duquesne. This is going to be one of the better matchups of round one. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this plays out with Duquesne. They have a great defense. They've won 16 of 19. However, BYU, they're 16th in the country according to Ken Palm. They have a top 30 offense, and they're fifth in assists. So I feel like it's going to be offense versus defense. And to be honest, I trust Duquesne's defense, and I think Duquesne, the 11th seed, going to go and get the victory. Then we have Illinois and we have Morehead State. I'm not thinking twice about it. Illinois has national championship potential. They're great on the defensive end. I'm going to go Illinois, the Illini moving on. I've been really confident on this one for a while. I am not a fan of Washington State, and I am a huge fan of Drake. Because if you look at the Cougars of Washington State, they have wins against Arizona. But that's really all they have. Their offense is really subpar, and their defense is good, but Drake also has the offense and ability to be a great team. Tucker DeVires, watch out for him, sixth in the country in scoring. I'm going the Bulldogs of Drake to move on to the round of 32. And then, don't think twice about it, Iowa State over South Dakota State. Let's move on to the West region. North Carolina over Wagner. Again, I'm really not thinking twice about it. We're going to talk about how UNC's path to the Final Four may be pretty simple. And again, I'm going to break that down. And to be honest, I don't even know if my bracket is officially set. I think I'm going through with you guys right now who exactly I have moving on from this West region. So it's a very complicated situation, but no worries. North Carolina's out in round one. Or getting out of round one. I think Michigan State also moves on in the 8-9 matchup with Mississippi State. All 8-9 matchups are usually pretty good games. This one in particular, just simply because Mississippi State is a team that has quality wins. They're 30th in the country according to Ken Palm. However, Michigan State, as inconsistent as they've been, they're 2-7 against top 25 opponents. However, they're 18th in the country according to Ken Palm, and they have one of the better defenses in the country as well. And we know that Tom Izzo, when it's March, he knows how to step up. He knows how to win the games. I'm going to go MSU to move on. St. Mary's Grand Canyon. I think I've seen more people pick Grand Canyon than I have St. Mary's. I think that's a little silly. St. Mary's, has gone toe-to-toe these past few years with Gonzaga in that conference. I'd say one of, if not the best defense, probably behind Houston in all of college basketball. While Grand Canyon, they're really good on both sides of the ball. Don't get me wrong. But I just don't know if Tyon Grant Foster is going to be good enough to get the job done against the St. Mary's team. So I am going to go with St. Mary's. It's really tough, but again, I think I need to roll with the Gales just because they're so good defensively, and it's going to be so hard to beat a defensive team like that in round one. Last year, I really liked Charleston. I picked them to beat San Diego State, who ended up making the national championship game and played a competitive game with UConn. That was a mistake. This Charleston team is nowhere close to what they were last year, and that's saying something because they played an awful tournament game last year, and I think they had the potential to make like the Sweet 16 Elite Eight last year. This is not a good Charleston team. I'm going Alabama. I think they're getting the benefit of the doubt being here again, but Bama has the number one offense in the country. And yeah, I think Bama moves on. Clemson, New Mexico. New Mexico is my pick. You guys are going to see it. I do not mind Clemson. In fact, the first time I did the bracket, I had Clemson in the Final Four. Like, I think the winner of this matchup really has a ton of potential. And this is not a like bashing Clemson kind of take. This is a good Clemson team, 34th according to Ken Palm. But New Mexico's 23rd according to Ken Palm, and they're an 11th seed. And they have wins against San Diego State, Colorado State, Boise State, Utah State. The list goes on and on. This New Mexico Lobos team is really talented on both sides of the ball. So I think they move on. I think Baylor beats Colgate in a really interesting matchup. When we saw Colgate here a few years ago against Arkansas, they took an early lead because they had such a dominating offense. And I feel that if you have a dominating offense as a 12th or 13th seed, anything can happen. That's usually my take. However, this year Colgate's being ran by their defense, which is 11th in the country. So it's interesting. I just don't think Colgate has what it takes offensively or just as an overall team. Though I don't like Baylor, I am going to pick them to move on to the round of 32. Dayton, Nevada. I don't really have much of a take here. I don't really like either teams, to be completely honest with you. Both of them are pretty even on this 7-10 matchup. You know what? I think I'm going to go Dayton. Dayton. Ugh, this is tough. I'm going to go Dayton. I'm going to go Dayton. And the reason why I am going to go Dayton is they have been more consistent. The Flyers have been, I think, a better team all year. Though, again, this game could really go either way. That's why it's impossible to pick a perfect bracket. Forget just the odds. Like, again, there's so much that can happen in March Madness. And then I have Arizona over Long Beach State. By the way, a few weird things. Number one, their mascot name is the Beaches. So they're the Long Beach State Beaches, for one. And then number two, they parted ways with their coach before their conference tournament, and now they're here in the NCAA tournament. It's complicated. All right, so nonetheless, moving on is Arizona. We're going to move on here to the South region. Houston, the number one defense in the country, over Longwood. Don't really need to explain myself there. I do have Texas A&M over Nebraska. That one's an interesting one. Again, that's a game that could really go either way. I just think Texas A&M overall. Nebraska's 28th in KenPom, so maybe I'm wrong, but I trust Wade Taylor on this Texas A&M team. They're still top. They're still a top 45 team in KenPom. They've beaten Kentucky twice this season. So yeah, I do like the Aggies a lot. Excuse me for that popping up right there. But yeah, I do like the Aggies a lot. I think they move on. Wisconsin, James Madison. I really love this Wisconsin team, but literally, if you want to think about guys, the teams in college basketball that could make an upset as a 12 seed. James Madison is like the perfect team because Wisconsin, they don't really have an amazing offense. They don't really have an amazing defense. They're just kind of average at everything. I know they're 17th in the country at KenPom, but they don't have the star power. While James Madison is top 100 in both offense and defense. Her offense is spectacular. They beat MSU earlier this year. Terrence Edwards Jr. has had a terrific year. They've been a little inconsistent, but they are exactly the kind of 12 seed that I would want to pick. So I'm going to go James Madison. I'm going to go Duke over Vermont. Not much to explain here. Vermont's just not a very powerful 13th seed. NC State made a great run, but I do think you see some of those teams in the conference tournament. They just happen to get hot in their conference. That doesn't mean they're a great team. I think the same goes for NC State. This is really not a great team. Their KenPom ranking, I mean, you have to double Texas Tech score, and you still don't even get close to NC State's KenPom ranking. This is just not a great NC State team. They just got hot for a few games in a good conference, and I don't think that will last. So I'm going to go Texas Tech, the Red Raiders. I'm going to go Kentucky, another one of those great offenses to move on. Now, this is interesting. If Colorado wins tonight, I'm going to pick Florida. If Boise State wins, I'm going to be picking Boise State. I love this Boise State team as a 10th seed. And to be honest, you may be like, Chase, it's a 10th seed. I know, but defensively, they're very good. They have the wins. They're 39th in KenPom overall, and I really like Tyson Degenhart. I think he's one of the better more underrated players in the country. And so I really like Boise State. But again, if Colorado wins, I am going to be going Florida. So got to keep track. Heads up on that. And then I do have Marquette over Western Kentucky. And honestly, I don't even think we know Tyler Kolek status for the NCAA tournament, which would be interesting. I'm actually just looking it up right now. Um, yeah, I don't think we know much yet. Um, my prediction may change based on whether Tyler Kolek does end up playing in the NCAA tournament. That's just something to point out. But overall, we're fine. We got Marquette for now. All right, and then this final region, which is the Midwest region, Purdue. They're not doing it again. They're not doing it again. Don't worry, they're moving on. I actually really like this Purdue team. I'll get into that in a minute. I have Utah State over TCU. I went over that one quickly. I think it's a tie matchup. Can go either way. I like Utah State, the great defensive team. This is where it gets interesting. I have two of the better programs of the last 30 years, Gonzaga and Kansas. And then I have two of my favorite 12 and 13 seeds, not based on what I like, but based on their play style and ability to make an upset in McNeese and Gonzaga. Excuse me, in McNeese and Sanford. I don't think people actually understand how good McNeese is. I know it's not in a great conference. They had the highest differential in college basketball, won over 30 games this year, was eighth in 3-point percentage. They're a top 10 defensive team in the country, and they were top 50 in offense. I absolutely love this McNeese team. Well, Gonzaga, I get it. They're top 15 in KenPom. They're the 10th best offense in college basketball, at least according to the stats. Graham Ike is top 20 in the league in field goal percentage. I get all of that. But a few months ago, we didn't even know if Gonzaga was going to be in the tournament. This is not a great Gonzaga team. I really like McNeese to move on. And then the same thing goes for Kansas. Now, something to point out for Kansas, Kevin McCullough Jr., I'm pretty sure we heard, is out for the NCAA tournament. They've been banged up all year, and honestly, they have not been the same team or anywhere close to what they were even last year as a 1 seed, but then 2 years ago when they won the national championship. So I'm going to go Sanford to move on to that matchup. So a 12 and 13 playing in the round of 32. I really like both of those teams. I think both of them have tremendous potential. South Carolina, Oregon, I like the Gamecocks. I really love this Creighton team. I don't really like Akron as a 14th seed. So now, I was going to say spoiler alert. No spoilers. I do not have a 14th seed winning a tournament game this year. Colorado State, great win last night over Virginia. I love this Texas team. I think they move on. And Tennessee, no miracle for St. Peter's. They beat my Fairfield Stags. I hate it, but don't worry. No miracle for the Peacocks this year. No Cinderella darling. It's Tennessee, the Volunteers. Move on. All right, back to the top of the bracket. This is where things get tough for UConn. They put UConn, the reigning champion, the number 1 overall seed, in probably the toughest region. Because if FAU was making their shots, they were a really hard team to beat. So I am going to go with the University of Connecticut Huskies, even still, to win, because I think you can't rely on FAU. They're too inconsistent. While UConn, you could go anywhere. They have Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, Alex Caravan, Donovan Clingan, Stephon Castle. They could go everywhere. They have 5 players who you could definitely say would be number ones on any contending team in the country. So this is just a juggernaut UConn team. I think they win. San Diego State, they're a great defensive team, and they've been here in the tournament before. I like Auburn. I like Auburn a lot. I like them on both sides of the ball. I think there's a reason why they won the SEC tournament. They're really playing great basketball right now. They're getting into the tournament hot. I really do like the Tigers. Duquesne, Illinois. I'm going to go Illinois. No, I'm going to go Duquesne. I've been going back and forth on this one all week. I like Duquesne. Everybody is really high on Illinois. I could see being somewhat high on them. I don't see everything about being high on the Illinois. I just don't think they're an amazing team. I know KenPom says it. I know Terrence Shannon is the 3rd best scorer in college basketball according to the numbers. I'm not high on this Illinois team. I just think Duquesne they're a team that's going into the tournament hot with scoring potential, but also incredible defensively. And I think that's going to be good enough to move on to the Sweet 16. That's a crazy take. I saw Duquesne play earlier this year. It was one of their last losses of the season. They came back in January. But yeah, I have to go Duquesne. And then Drake, Iowa State. If Drake was going against any other 2 seed, I'd probably pick Drake. But I really like this Iowa State team. They killed. killed Houston. And I just think that in the championship game, they're incredible defensively. I just really like the Seminoles this year, so I'm going to go with Iowa State to move on to the Sweet 16. We're going to start to move on quicker. This Michigan State team is just not great. Let's be honest. I think they were overseeded. I do think they're a good defensive team. It's still Tom Izzo. I like North Carolina, the Tar Heels. St. Mary's, Alabama. This is my take. For teams Alabama, Arizona, and Kentucky, you're going to see it later. How am I supposed to get high on those teams when, and I'll just use Bama as an example, they're toward the top offensively. However, defensively, hold on, you got to hear what Alabama's defensive ranking is. They're first offensively and 357th defensively. There are only 6 worst teams statistically in college basketball on defense. I don't know how that's supposed to work against the second best defensive team in the country. Give me the Gales to move on. New Mexico, Baylor. I got the Lobos. Again, I really like this New Mexico Lobos team, and then I do have Arizona beating Dayton. Now we will move on to the South region. We're going to start to move quicker. I'm sorry, it has been long already. I don't like Texas A&M at all. I had them going to the Final Four last year. Mistake of a lifetime. Number 1 defense moves on to the Sweet 16. James Madison and Duke. I love the Dukes. Give me Dukes over Duke. Texas Tech, Kentucky. Again, this is where I like Texas Tech. This whole offense, no defense thing is not sustainable. It's Calipari in the playoffs. It's something's not going to work. I got the Red Raiders, and then I do have Marquette. Moving on. So we have a 1-4, 11-2, 1-5, 11-2. Oh, no, we have to do this one. Excuse me. Midwest. We haven't even done that yet. Purdue, I think they move on to the Sweet 16. They're a much better team than Utah State. I think McNeese is overall, while both teams are good defensively, I just like McNeese overall as a better team. So I have them beating Sanford. I have Creighton beating the Gamecocks. And the Volunteers go out early. I am really high on the Texas Longhorns. You have to remember this name, guys. Max Abmas, the star from Oral Roberts that led Oral Roberts to the Sweet 16 a few years ago. He is still here in college basketball. Except now, he's on the Longhorns, a good, proven organization. You take Abmas and you put him onto a great Texas team, and they are going to have a great tournament. Now, will that end? We'll mention that in just a minute. I have UConn beating Auburn. I just think any inconsistencies that teams have, UConn can exploit. They're amazing on both sides of the ball. They're top 25 in offense and defense in the country. They're number 1 in Ken Pom. This is just an amazing UConn team. They head back to the Elite Eight. And then I do think Iowa State does beat Duquesne. Duquesne's run has to come to an end at some point, and I think now is the point where it does come to an end. North Carolina, St. Mary's. Goodbye, Tar Heels. The Gales move on. Again, we're literally just having a conversation of who are we going to take, St. Mary's or Grand Canyon in round 1, and I have St. Mary's heading to the Elite Eight. I just think North Carolina, their inconsistencies, right? If you look at the preview of this game here, shout out to ESPN for making these amazing previews. They lost to UConn. They beat Tennessee. They beat Clemson. They beat Duke. They lost to Clemson. Then you beat Duke. I feel like they're just like a really inconsistent team. You don't know what you're getting out of them. R.J. Davis is good. Armando Bacot is good. Both of these guys are amazing players. I feel like the only reason why anybody is picking, and that includes me, North Carolina to go far in the tournament is because of their competition. And I just don't know. See, I do think St. Mary's has a good enough defense to exploit those offensive weapons. Don't second guess yourself, Chase. St. Mary's moves on to the Elite Eight. And then, that's right, folks. The New Mexico Lobos move on. I'm telling you, this is an incredible Lobos team. And Arizona, again, like Kentucky, like Alabama, all offense, no defense. That is not sustainable. And New Mexico will take advantage of that. Houston, James Madison, Dukes, your run comes to an end, but congratulations on the Sweet 16 appearance. That is something you'll never forget. But yeah, it does come to an end there. And then Texas Tech, Marquette. I want to say the Red Raiders, but I do have to go Marquette. I just think, especially if Tyler Kolek's healthy. Because if Tyler Kolek's healthy, this Marquette team is a very good team. I do not think Shaka's smart squad. Choke again. I heard 35% of brackets have Marquette in the Elite Eight, which is crazy as a 2 seed. Everyone thinks they're going to choke. I just don't see it. I think this is a really, really good Marquette team. And then over here, McNeese, again, kind of like James Madison, congrats on a great run, but Purdue has to move on here. And then Creighton in Texas. I really would want to go Texas here, but I love this Creighton team even more than I do Texas. Ryan Kalkbrenner is one of the better rim protectors in the country, and I think that will come in factor for the Blue Jays. They also have Baylor Shireman, 18 points per game, 9 rebounds per game during the regular season. I really like the Blue Jays. They move on. So I have a 1 seed, a 3 seed, a 5 seed, an 11 seed, a 1 seed, and a 2 seed, and a 1 seed and a 2 seed. Iowa State, this is where your season comes to an end. Again, I'm telling you, this UConn team is a juggernaut. They move on to the Final Four for the second consecutive season. New Mexico is not headed to the Final Four, so St. Mary's is. That's right. Again, a team we were just wondering, are they getting out of the first round? They're moving on to the Final Four. Let's go right back up here to the top of the bracket. Houston or Marquette. Goodbye, Cougars. The Marquette Golden Eagles move on to the Final Four. And then Purdue or Creighton. I love Zach Edey. I love this Purdue team. I do. It's the Boilermakers. It's still Purdue. Creighton moves on to the Final Four. So a conference that only got 3 teams in the tournament has 3 teams in the Final Four, which I do think, by the way, is crazy. The fact that St. John's, Seton Hall, these teams who were beating UConn, beating Creighton, or at least getting close to it, how are those teams not here? I think that's crazy to me. So you have 3 Big East teams and St. Mary's in the Final Four. UConn, St. Mary's, a rematch of the round of 32 last year. Give me the Huskies. I think eventually St. Mary's kind of got by here. North Carolina's a good offense. That's honestly their biggest upset. Outside of that, they're never, and I guess Alabama. I take back what I said. They can handle good offenses according to my bracket. But UConn, the problem is North Carolina has only a few players to work with. Alabama has a few players to work with. Again, UConn, anybody can step up at any given moment at any given time. So I have the Huskies heading to the national championship game. And then I have Creighton beating Marquette. It's still Marquette. I think Marquette's a good basketball team. I think they've been inconsistent. We've seen what they're like without Tyler Kolek. It's not great. How much does Kolek add? Now, that's a good question. But I just do think Creighton, when you look at the offensive side and the defensive side of the basketball, they are such a good basketball team. I have Creighton moving on. I have UConn moving on. And for those who do not know, UConn has lost 7 of their last 8 to the Blue Jays. They cannot beat this team. They are their kryptonite. There's one team that has somehow been able to figure out UConn, and that's the Creighton Blue Jays. Give me the Huskies. The Huskies get it done. Huskies win with a total of 136 points in the championship game, and let me tell you why. This Husky team, again, is a juggernaut. They are a powerhouse. When you look at their offensive ability, their defensive ability, Tristan Newton is the best player in the nation. That is my take. Donovan Clingan is the best rim protector in the nation. Stephon Castle is the best freshman in the nation. They just have pieces everywhere. Cam Spencer is their leading scorer and will not make the NBA. That is insane to me. Yet they're going to have so many other NBA players. My point is, they have players everywhere. Alex Caravan is like your perfect like Klay Thompson player on this team. They just have everybody. They have a great bench. They have depth. They have amazing coaching in Dan Hurley and even assistant Kamani Young. UConn is a powerhouse. They're a force. They are a juggernaut. They are a machine. And to quote Jim Nance, nobody is any match for the Husky Express as UConn becomes the first team in 17 years to go back to back. We hope you guys enjoyed this edition of March Madness. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, please tell me what you guys think of your picks. And yeah, if you guys are seeing this right now, as the tournament starts, we'll see how my predictions do. Again, I get some predictions right. I get some wrong. We'll see which ones I do get right and wrong. I appreciate you if you did make it to the end of the episode. I really do appreciate it. If you did make it here, comment "Go Huskies" down below and like this video. Thank you guys so much. Go Huskies. And we will see you next time here on the Chase's Sports News YouTube channel. Signing off from our March Madness show.